I remember you. You're the one that made my dreams come true a few kisses ago. Welcome back, friends. What are we doing tonight? Well, we're going to have a quiet night. Just a few people. Just a few people. Please, no pictures. No pictures. Yes, we have to get ready for the press release. As some of you may know, last night, True Crime Metrix joined the pantheon of the immortals with the 1,000 subscriber count landmine. And we are now just as good as everyone else. You know, there was a time years before when I said to myself, man, if I had a monetized YouTube channel, it would show everybody. Show everybody. And now we do. So how about that? Anyway, what about this Google Earth, huh? Man, they've been getting freaky over there. First of all, we have to present, share screen, browse. Look at Google Earth, man. Can you all see that? It's cool. Look, there's the Circle A food store. So this is where Michael Drejka pulled in, right? He went right in here. Markeis McGlockton, Brittany Jacobs was parked here. And look, there's someone. Is that a car? There's a car in the space. Quick, somebody call Michael Drejka. Get him down here. Tell him to bring his camera. He's going to have to sort this out and document this and get a couple of monster drinks while we're at it. I wonder what flavor he had. How many flavors of that stuff can there be? Sometimes I just look at the shelf in the supermarket and it's like, man. And you know, all the marketing on the cans. The cans are all super colorful and modern, right? There's nothing wrong with Apple Tango. Okay. But yeah, I thought Google Earth was cool. And that's his neighborhood. That's the store. That's his store. The store he went every day. I wonder where his house is. Maybe his address. I guess his address would be on record. But yeah, Clearwater, Florida, where the waters ain't so clear, I bet. Full of concrete dust. Full of concrete dust. Look at these places they build. How nuts is that? Could you be any more artificial? It's worse than Dubai. Yeah. What about the poor suckers who live here? Oh, this is the other side, isn't it? This is the Gulf of Mexico. Oh, is that Miami? Let's have a quick look at the Icon Tower. How do we see the Icon Tower? Is it Icon Tower or building? Icon Tower, Miami. Oh, there it is. Okay, so how do we do 3D now? Ah, look. Oh, look at it, Donna. Imagine, Donna, looking out at the Atlantic Ocean. Or not quite, but, you know, looking out at how rich you are and how everybody would love to live. Actually, I don't think this is it. That's not South Beach, is it? That's downtown. Is this it? I think that's it, right? Surely it must say. Anyway, that's not what we're here for today, guys. Today, we are here for Michael Drejka opening statements. Opening statements, prosecution and defense in one. Yeah, I was looking at the list of stuff that we're going to be covering soon, guys, and it's getting to the point where I want to spend time on everything, which I couldn't do today. But, you know, it's like, oh, maybe I should do that Jody thing. And then I thought, no, we need to prep this. And then I thought, oh, maybe we should do the Michael Dunn thing. And, you know, I want to do something different with that. And every case was like this. So we're back to Michael Drejka, which some people care about, some don't. It doesn't have the allure of a Chris Watts case or the excitement of an Adelson. Hey, John Duncan, how we doing? But it's something we're going to cover. We're just going to have a quick look. Nothing serious, guys. Nothing heavy. Come on.
Mr. Schaub, you may proceed with your opening statement.
You need to stop this behavior. You need to knock it off. It's not worth it. I can't help myself. It always gets me in trouble.
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative, and it's not a statement.
Okay, these opposing counsel, the defense and the state of Florida in this case, really hate each other. It's so funny. It gets personal. They start ripping on each other's styles to the judge. The defense is actually pretty brutal. One of the guys, I think his name's Trevini. I don't know. I can't remember. The big guy. He's very good, I think. Just his speaking style. I think it was close. Which was an amazing considering what an uphill battle it was. Anyway, just a quick reintroduction to the case. We have already covered some of the case on our channel page, but Michael Drejka is the guy that had a pet peeve, as he said, as he called it, about people parking in disabled spots without the proper placard. People that just park in the handicap spot. He had a major deal with that and was down at this store every day. It was his local store. He'd go there as part of his routine in the day to buy Monster drinks. So he's pepped up, he's hyped up on this Monster stuff, and then he just needs to do something with all that energy and frustration and poor bladder control. So he's out there with a camera, photographing people, pointing at the car, getting into verbal altercations, getting into threatening altercations with other members of the public. Anyway, on this occasion, Brittany Jacobs parks up in her car with live-in longtime boyfriend and father of 3 with one on the way, Markeis McGlockton. Markeis goes into the store with his son, little Markeis. Or is it Markeith? Sorry, am I pronouncing his name wrong? I really shouldn't do that. Yeah, it's Markeith. Or Marquise. Sorry, let's just check this. We'll call him McGlockton for now. So McGlockton goes in the store. Brittany is left in the car with the 3 kids. Michael Drejka parks up. What are you doing parking in that spot? He's walking around the car in a really frustrated, foot-stomping kind of way, attitude, looking for a fight, looking for a problem. And Brittany Jacobs rolls down her window and says, "What the hell are you doing, man?" "Well, you shouldn't be parking in that spot." She says, "Well, is it affecting you directly?" And Michael Drejka says, "Well, if my mother-in-law was here, yes, it would be affecting me directly." Which I think is a really poor and weak argument, Anyway, it escalates with this woman, Brittany Jacobs, and Michael Drejka, just verbal altercation. But she's saying stuff like, "Hey, do I need to get my man out here?" And Michael Drejka's like, "What's that going to do, And then the man does come out and pushes Michael Drejka to the ground. Pretty hard push, right? Michael Drejka then takes out his gun and shoots him through the heart and lungs, and he dies about 45 seconds later on the floor of the convenience store, in front of his 5-year-old son. And this is his trial for manslaughter. I'm amazed. I always thought it was second-degree murder, but he just got manslaughter. And these are the opening statements, which we're watching now.
Statement of what he intends to prove to show. He hasn't indicated that. Overruled.
Those are the words of the defendant on February 14th, Valentine's Day of last year, when he got into a parking lot altercation at the Circle A convenience store in Clearwater. Those were his words. 5 months later, those words rang true. because on that day, he got into another parking lot confrontation with a young African-American female named Brittany Jacobs. And her partner, her boyfriend, the father of her 3 children, came to her aid, and he did not drive home that day, as he found himself dying on the floor of that same convenience store 5 months later in Clearwater, Florida, as his 5-year-old son looked on. Good morning. Yesterday, the day before, we had an opportunity to ask you all a lot of questions. Well, today there should be 2 questions you have of Mr. Rosenwasser and myself. What are you going to prove to us, and how are you going to prove it? What we're going to prove to you during the course of this trial is that the defendant in this case is guilty of the crime of manslaughter. Now, we've watched a lot of TV, we talked about that. We've heard about, premeditated murder. No, he's not charged with first-degree murder. We've heard about ill will, hate, spite, evil intent, second-degree murder. No, he's not charged with second-degree murder. What he's charged with is manslaughter. He took the life of another human being unlawfully without any legal justification. And that's what we're going to prove to you during the course of this trial. Now, how are we going to prove it? 2 ways. By evidence, things that you're going to be able to see. You're going to see the video of that incident from start to finish. Things that you're going to be able to hear. You're going to hear the defendant's statements. Things that you're going to be able to take back with you to that jury room when you deliberate. Feel and touch the gun, his holster that he was wearing that day. All those type of things. And we're going to do it by way of testimony. Ladies and gentlemen, witnesses are going to come into this courtroom, they're going to sit right here, and they're going to take an oath. Now, our goal in this trial, believe it or not, our goal in this trial is twofold. 1, to ensure that Mr. Drejka receives a fair trial. He is presumed innocent by each and every one of you. But at the close of this trial, we're going to ask that you take that presumption away. But he, like anyone that walks into a courtroom in our country, warrants a fair trial. And we're going to ensure that. The second thing we want to make sure, by way of the testimony, by way of the evidence, is that you have an opportunity to almost be there, to see exactly what happened, so you can make the decision in this case. You are the judges of the facts of the evidence in this case. The close of
This thing of like, we're going to ensure that he gets a fair trial. It's so funny because they act like they're doing him a favor. Like, yeah, we're going to make sure that it's fair. But in the preliminary hearing, the prosecution was saying all sorts of things like, okay, we need to make sure that Mr. Drejka has reviewed the Facebook post that his co-counsel left saying that he was wrong, because we don't want him coming back later after he's convicted and saying, now I can have an appeal based on ineffective assistance of counsel. They act like they're doing him a favor, but what they're really doing is saying, okay, when we convict you, we don't want to give you any grounds for appeal, man.
this trial, the judge is getting
This prosecutor's so animated. Hey, look at him. He's jumping up and down on the furniture like a gorilla. Man's insane. He's really angry as well, isn't he? Very postured prosecutor. And his head, it's an amazing shape. It almost, you remember Mrs. Doubtfire before they make the correct mask and he tries on all these different masks? This guy's head looks like one of those early Mrs. Doubtfire masks.
to give you the law, and you to apply that law to that evidence. And we're confident you'll do that. And what you're going to learn by the way of the witness testimony. And first you got to start, let's go chronologically. You got to start on that Valentine's Day. A young African-American male was working, Rick Kelly. He was working for a septic tank company. That septic tank company's offices were right around the corner from this convenience store. The convenience store was on the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Douglas Avenue in Clearwater. That business was right around the corner. Rick Kelly's going to testify to you. He's going to tell you since he was a little boy, he went to that convenience store. He'd always go into that convenience store. He had such a relationship with the owner of that convenience store, he could pick up items and pay at the end of the week, pick up items, say, Ali, I've got such and such. And at the end of the week, he'd pay for the items. So on this particular day, Mr. Kelly was at work. He's been working at the septic tank company for some time. He was finishing up for the day. It was a hot day, and he was going to run into the convenience store and grab himself a soda to drink. And that's what he did. Matter of fact, he left his tanker truck running. And this is a big, big tanker truck. He left the tanker truck running.
This Mr. Kelly guy that's been going to the Circle A, and it is Circle A, not Circle K. It's the only Circle A in Clearwater. Possibly the whole state. Anyway, Richard Kelly's been going to the Circle A convenience store his whole life. You know, he's known Ali, the owner, since he was a little boy, going in there to buy candy and bubble gum, right? Now he's a grown man, and he has a relationship with Ali that says, hey, I'm picking up a soda, you know, just put it on my tab. I'll come get you at the end of the week. But they ask Mr. Kelly, they say, how often do you go to the store? Every day? And he says, sometimes maybe 6 or 7 times a day. You know, and okay, I guess that he's on a delivery route and like he stops for a drink. They say, what do you get? He's like, well, cigarettes, chips, candy. You know, all the good stuff, right? All the healthy stuff. Yeah, so I mean, I would think, you know, wouldn't it be better to go once a day and just buy, you know, more things? It would save time. But I don't know, maybe he just really likes to go there. You know, Michael Drejka went there every day, twice a day. I think people just like to have this shop in their life, you know, celebrate it every day.
And in the front seat of that tanker truck, he had money. Because what he would do is go to the accounts and empty out septic tanks or fix septic tanks and do that type of thing. And then people would pay him by cash or by check. And he would keep all that money in the front seat of his compartment there in that truck. He left the truck running because he was going to just run in and run out. And matter of fact, he ran in, picked up a soda, said, Ali, I got a soda. Didn't even go to the register with him. And then when he went outside, he saw a man, the defendant. He saw this man right here. And he saw the defendant walking around his truck, peeking in the windows, taking out his phone and taking pictures of his truck. And he's like, whoa, what are you doing around my truck? Remember, he has money in the truck. He has checks in that truck. That truck was running. What are you doing around my truck? Get away from my truck, sir. Are you handicapped? No. Are you? That doesn't matter. Well, are you with somebody that's handicapped? That doesn't matter. What are you doing parking here? And then a confrontation started. An argument started. It got heated. Curse words were used. It got heated. It got loud. At one point in time, Mr. Drejka went over to his truck, went into the truck and came back out. It got so loud that the store owner, Mr. Ali Salas, he's the owner-operator of that convenience store. He works 7 days a week. Every day he works. Morning shifts. And he heard the argument because it was so loud. And he went outside and he tried to calm down the situation. And Ricky, who he knows, said, all right, I'm leaving. Ricky said, I'm leaving. But before Ricky left, the defendant made a threat to Ricky Kelly. He said, I could shoot you. I could blow your head off. Ricky was a little upset. Ricky thought he might have to get...
That's a really unfortunate bit of circumstantial history evidence coming into your manslaughter trial for shooting someone who parked in the handicapped spot. The fact that, what was it, 5 weeks earlier? He'd threatened to blow someone's head off for parking in that spot. Well, God, the trial would have definitely been different had that not come in, huh?
Physical, but he didn't. He got into his car. Back, I'm sorry. into his
Your Honor, I
tanker
must
truck.
object if we could approach.
Okay. Mr. Schaub, you may proceed.
So he threatened him with a gun. Now, Mr. Kelly's going to tell you he never saw it. He never saw a gun whatsoever. But Mr. Kelly had one more thing to do for work, so he got into his truck and he left the location. And he was going to go empty out.
Hi, Tracy. Yeah, I'd love to, but the acoustics in the studio are way off tonight. Way off. It's these winds, you know, these winds.
Septic tank over in Dunedin out of facility there. So he had one more thing to do. On that drive, he had a phone call from the owner of his business. The owner of his business is John Tyler, and he's going to testify to you. Mr. Tyler's going to tell you he received a voice message on his phone from the defendant. The defendant was upset about his employee, Rick Kelly. Mr. Tyler was going to call him back, but he wanted to find out what it was all about. He called Mr. Kelly, he found out what it was all about, and then you're going to hear about the phone call that he had with the defendant. Listen carefully to Mr. Tyler. Because Mr. Tyler called him, he said he was, Drejka, the defendant, said he was angry and he was upset about the parking that his employee did. Mr. Tyler asked him, are you handicapped? I'm sorry. He said, no. Well, were you with someone that was handicapped? No. All right, well, I apologize. It got heated to a point where he said he's lucky I wasn't carrying because I could have shot him. He said that to Mr. Tyler. Mr. Tyler, carrying a concealed weapon permit holder, said this conversation's not going anywhere.
See, he's doubled down on the evidence now. He's leaving voicemails for the boss, the septic tank company boss. He's getting him to call him back and saying, hey, it's a good job I wasn't carrying that day because I could have shot him. Again, really bad. You got to think about it from the perspective of the jury, right? They know they're here about a shooting, a killing, right, with a gun, about a guy who hates people parking in the disabled spot at his shop. Okay? And now they're thinking, yeah, this bit of history, it fits.
You mean you can shoot someone over a parking spot? And he terminated the phone call. But before he did, he said, go ahead, you can call the police. I'll talk to them if I need to. Remember, I said that argument got loud. Mr. Salas, the owner, heard that argument. And he went outside and he checked it out, calmed it down, had Ricky drive off. Then he had a conversation with the defendant. And this is important because his conversation as that owner of that business, he said, you need to knock it off. You need to stop this behavior. It's not worth it. Mr. Drejka acknowledged that he knows it's wrong, but he can't help himself. It always gets in trouble. Now, we need to go forward. Oh, let me talk about another witness you're going to hear from Nelson DeLeon, detective, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. And he's going to tell you how he came about finding out about this incident. And listen carefully to what he tells you. Because when Ricky, on that day of the incident, now we're going to go forward, all right? We're going to go forward to July 19th of last year. 5 months later, on July 19th, Markeis McGlockton was killed at that convenience store. Ricky was working AAA 7. He walked by, he noticed a vehicle in that parking lot, a silver SUV. He remembered that silver SUV because that silver SUV had been the car driven by the defendant in the altercation in February. He went and told his boss. He did not want to get involved. His boss kind of guilted him to get involved. Said, you got to tell them what you know about that car and the operator of that car. So he walked over to the scene. Law enforcement was there, tape was up, Detective De Leon was there. And he walked up to Detective De Leon and said, is this car involved in anything? He didn't know what had taken place. He didn't know if a shooting had occurred. He didn't know if what had occurred. He didn't know who was the victim. He didn't know if the victim was a female, if the victim was a male, if the victim was white, Asian, African American, or what. He had no idea. Detective De Leon said, well, I don't know. All the cars were reported. Why? What do you know about the car? He told him the story of what had happened a couple months earlier at that same convenience store. And you're going to hear about that. He had no agenda. He told him what happened on that day, on July 19th. Now, let's talk about July 19th. July 19th was a typical day for Markeis McGlockton. 28 years old, father of 3. Had a baby on its way. Markeis lives with Brittany Jacobs. That's his partner. They've been together for 10 years. They were high school sweethearts. They went to Dunedin High. She was 3
Your
years
Honor, I
old.
object if we could approach.
Okay.
I think it's kind of bad form, isn't it, to object in opening statement? I mean, it does happen quite regularly, but I think it's kind of got to be more of a line crossed, right? You're kind of supposed to just let them get on with it. It's not evidence. But yeah, these opposing counsels in this case really don't like each other at all. They are not going out for drinks after at all.
Markeis worked during the night at the 7-Eleven located on Drew Street in Clearwater. He worked during the day, watched the kids, they lived together. Brittany Jacobs would work during the day while he watched the kids. Brittany worked at East Bay Rehab Center, caring for the elderly, people with dementia.
Your Honor, again, relevance.
All right. Overruled.
Just look at his face when he turns around. He's pissed, man.
Again, relevance.
All right. Overruled.
It's his job. It's his job. He's describing the job of the decedent. It's his job. How is it not relevant? Your Honor, again, relevance. It's his job.
That's what she does. That was her job. She was a certified nursing assistant working at East Bay Rehab Center. That's where she was that day. She worked from 7 to 3. She got off work at 3 o'clock. Markeis picks her up, just like he always does. He had the 3 kids in the car. He picks her up. She decides to drive. She drives and stops at the Circle A convenience store. Now you're going to hear her family grew up around the Circle K. Markeis's family lived around the Circle K. They've been to the Circle A convenience store. Brittany pulls up. She parks in a handicapped parking spot. We're not going to say that's right. It's not. But she parks in a handicapped parking spot. Markeis has his two kids in the car, and he's going to run in to grab some sodas and some candy or food for the kids, and some snacks. And you're going to see the car pull up, park into that spot, and you're going to see Markeis get out of that car with Markeis Jr., the 5-year-old, and he walks with that child inside the store. And you're going to see him inside the store. And you're going to see him walk inside the store and even go to the cash register. But while he's doing that, there's something going on out in that parking lot.
Hey, John Duncan says that the female cop in the back has a Dover, Delaware double bun. We've got to check that out. Well, that one? Oh, yeah.
And you're going to see the car pull up, park into.
Must be the big thing in Clearwater, huh? And Dover.
That spot. And you're going to see Markeis get out of that car with Markeis Jr., the 5-year-old. And he walks with that child inside the store. And you're going to see him inside the store. And you're going to see him walk inside the store and even go to the cash register. But while he's doing that, there's something going on out in that parking lot. And it's the defendant. And he confronts Brittany Jacobs. And he starts in about her parking in a handicapped spot. But watch, because you're going to be able to see this. Watch what he does when he goes into that, when he approaches that car. He parks his car, he gets out, he walks around that car, peeking in the windows of her car, walks to the back of the car, the front of her car, looking in the windows. She's concerned. She's by herself. She has.
You know, I think we should spend a bit of time here at True Crime Metrix and develop a behavior profile of Michael Drejka. What is this thing where you've got to take it upon yourself to storm around a car? You know, if he's got an issue with the parking, he could just go and ask people. You know, no, he wants to stomp around like he's in a really bad mood. I mean, what is the need that he is fulfilling with that?
Has 2 young babies in the car. And here's some crazy guy walking around the car.
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, overruled.
Here's some guy walking around.
Wow, I thought he was going to sustain that. He's calling him a crazy guy. You know, in 10 or 20 years, that'll be like calling someone, I don't know, a fag.
Around her car that she has never met before. And he starts in out. And this is ironic. Well, look at this video.
Remember to leave a like on the video, guys. This is going to be a very, very low numbers stream tonight. So, you know, we should be able to get 100% likes. What do you think? You know, this is not a big popular case like Chris Watts, but, you know, we cover what we want to cover. And we like the case, okay? So that's what we're covering. You got a problem with that?
Look where he's parked. He's not parked legally. He's parked not even in a spot. He pulls up in a non-parking spot.
I love how they gave him a black attorney. He's got 3 attorneys, huh?
Complaining about her park. Look at that. Look at that video. He's not parked legally. He complains about her parking. Are you handicapped?
Yeah, that's the funniest thing is that he parked in the middle of the parking lot, blocking everybody, the handicapped and the, you know, just capped, the non-handicapped. He's blocking everybody, complaining about bad parking.
To you, are you, you know, in and in, arguing, cursing, the whole 9 yards goes on. Meanwhile, you're going to see on that video, you're going to see people walking into that store, people coming in. Now remember, it's broad daylight in the middle of the day, and people are walking in and out of that convenience store. Look at the people that walk in and out of that convenience store. Watch them very carefully. Look at them. You're going to see them. They all look in that direction. They all look over at that confrontation because it's loud, because he's arguing with this young female. It gets their attention. Matter of fact, Mr. Robert Costello, witness in this case, pulled in and you're going to hear it caught his attention, and he's going to tell you he was concerned. He thought about.
Yeah, it's funny because the CCTV video, the security camera video, which is on a really old, crappy definition camera, you know, just video, no audio. But as the argument's going on, you can see that, and the people that are going in and out of the store, their heads turn, so you can hear the volume of the argument even without the sound, you know, by looking at the visual. So telling, so telling.
Going over and interjecting himself, but he didn't. Instead, he listened for a while, and then you're going to hear he went to the front door, and he told the store owner in there, and you're going to see this on video. Markeis is right there with Markeis Jr. at that store, getting ready to buy his stuff. Mr. Castelli comes to the door, and Mr. Castelli says, there's a problem out here in the parking lot. There's a problem out here. I think you better do something. Markeis heard that. You're going to see him put down the items, leave Markeis Jr. inside the store, walk out, and you're going to see him walk out and walk up to where Mr. Drejka was.
Well, John Duncan asks, what do you think he's writing? I think he's what do you call it? Ratifying the Constitution, right? Ratify. I can't remember which one it is, but he loves being from Delaware. He's like, yeah, that little state up there. I was born and bred and bled. What does he say? I can't remember what he says. Born and bred and bled and bred in Delaware.
This is the view that Mr. McGlockton had. And you're going to see it on videotape. These are still.
No, he's doing a crossword puzzle, isn't he? He's like, okay, 5 down. You sit on it, but you can't take it with you. 5 letters.
Photos of that. When he walks out of that school. 1 foot away from her window, from the mother of his children's window, from the 2 babies in that car. He was right there, finger pointing, wagging his finger at her.
Yeah, shopping list. Get monsters. It's just 22 lines, the same thing. Get monsters, get monsters, get monsters, get monsters. And what do you think his shopping list would be? I'm thinking he's big on Pop-Tarts. Probably the strawberry white icing Pop-Tarts. And I don't know. What kind of cereal do you think he likes? You think he's a chocolate kind of guy, or cinnamon? Or, yeah, maybe Cocoa Puffs.
He heard there was a problem out there. You bet he went out to defend his family.
Yeah, Cocoa Puffs, the kind of cereal where there's like a game on the back, like a maze or something, and he loves to do the maze.
And when he got out there, he pushed him away from that car and pushed him down. And did he push him hard? Yes. Pushed him down away from his family. He heard there was a problem out there. He saw there was a problem out there. And he pushed that person away from his family. And that's when the problem happened. Because after he did that, Mr. Drejka pulled out his gun. He was carrying a gun on a holster. He pulled out his gun. He was on the ground. He pointed that gun directly at Mr. McGlockton. And watch carefully. We're going to show you a slow motion video.
He's sat on the floor now. I tell you, man, maybe he's overdoing it a bit, but it takes extra confidence in your arrangement of the facts, in your theatrics. You know, I mean, it's hard to pull off and make look good if you don't know what you're doing. And I think he gets away with it. I think he does a very good job at this. And trust me, what he's doing, all this running around the courtroom, holding up the big picture, leaning over the big picture, holding it with emphasis. Now he's on the floor, acting out the scene. Dedicated to his work, his craft. No, he's probably been rehearsing this in his garden all weekend, driving his wife nuts. You know, her friends are coming round, looking out the kitchen window, and he's sat on the floor pretending to be Michael Drejka. Oh man!
A portion of that when he waves Mr. McGlockton over. Mr. McGlockton backs up. Mr. McGlockton backs up as far as he can go, all the way to the car. He can't go back any further and watch that video. He starts to turn away from the confrontation, and he's shot at that time. Matter of fact, the video speaks better than I can. Backs up, turns, shot. After he's shot, he heads back into the store.
The video speaks better than he can. Well, the video sounded just like him. Exactly the same voice.
And falls on the ground and dies in that store. You're going to see that video taped numerous times during the course of this trial. You're going to see still shots taken from that videotape. After this occurred, the defendant was interviewed. The defendant was talked to by law enforcement. Listen real carefully to that interview. It's about an hour long. Listen real carefully to that interview. The defendant uses these military law enforcement terms. He's not military, he's not law enforcement. He's 47 years old, and he's been retired for many, many years. Says he came into some money from his mother dying, and he was retired, I think, in 2006.
Yeah, this thing about Michael Drejka being retired. Since he was like 33 or something, you know, his mother died, left him some money, and he said, "Well, I'm not going to work now. I'll use the money that my mother left me." To live on, and saying to his wife, "So you'll still go to work though, okay? Because this is just like my paycheck, but I'll be here. I'll be here at the house." And and you know, it eventually got to the point where he was like, "Oh, we're running low. We're running low. We'll have to sell the boat. Sell the boat. Okay, sell the boat." And then it was a few more months, and it was like, "Well, we're running low. We'll have to sell the motorbikes. Sell the motorbikes." And then just before this happened, you know, he'd run out of money. She only got, you know, a normal person's paycheck, not enough to pay both their way, why should she have to? So he was going to go back into work, but I don't think he had hopes for much, you know. Stocking shelves. So maybe he did this subconsciously just to get out of going back to work.
He talks about that on the video. Not in law enforcement, not in the military. Listen to what he says. He starts talking about a thing called the 21-foot rule. Actually, I think today it may be a 25-foot rule. But what that...
Yeah, he's just in the interrogation room going, 21-foot rule. If I come up on a target and I need to shoot, I'm shooting.
Rule is, take off. What that rule is, ladies and gentlemen, is plain and simple. if a law enforcement officer is 21 foot away from a suspect, and that suspect has a blunt instrument, a sharp-edged instrument, a knife, a hatchet, and that officer hasn't drawn his weapon yet, by the time that officer can draw his weapon, pull it out, aim, and shoot, he needs to do it, because in 21 foot, that person can close that gap with that sharp-edged object. And why is that important? Because in this case, we have no sharp-edged object. You're going to hear that Mr. McGlockton was unarmed. No knife, no gun, no weapon of any kind on his person.
You know, the defense in closing, they say something like, Mr. McGlockton was the weapon here. Mr. McGlockton was the cause of his own death. And it's like, you gotta, that's pushing it, isn't it? That's pushing the boundaries. But they do, and they get away with quite a lot. The defense. They're pretty cheeky, especially the big guy.
He was unarmed. The 21-foot rule does not apply to an unarmed man. And you're going to hear that during the course of this trial by way of expert testimony. And I'll talk about that in a moment. He also uses a term called force multiplier, as though that justified the situation. Force multiplier can mean numerous things. One of the things, I think, is kind of a military term, perhaps, where if they have an army of 100, you better have an army of 200. If somebody has one tank, you better have.
Yeah, doesn't that make it sound like he knows what he's doing? I needed a force multiplier. Yeah, you know, I went from pushing to gun.
If somebody has a knife, you better have a gun. If somebody has a gun, you better have two guns. That type of scenario. In this case, Mr. McGlockton had no weapon. The 21-foot rule didn't apply also because that situation, the gun was already out. In the situation you saw, and watch his hand, watch it move. In the situation you saw, that controlled the situation. Ended. It's over. No, he took the life. Watch carefully him backing up. Watch carefully.
Hey, Carrie, welcome to the show.
Him turning to the side. You know, you're going to hear testimony from the medical examiner, Dr. Noel Palmer. We're going to show you photos, specifically the entry wound and the exit wound. And he's hit on the side, right here on the side. And the exit wound, the slug didn't actually come all the way out, but came right to the surface and caused a bruise indentation. So you can see the exit wound. The exit wound was up on the side. He was turning. He wasn't shot head on. That interview we want you to listen to. Listen real carefully. He talks about the 21-foot rule. He talks about force multiplier. He indicates Mr. McGlockton never said one word. Never said one word. He indicates Brittany Jacobs during the argument said something about, you want me to get my man. And I think she acknowledges that, since she said that. You want me to get my man. But he says not one word. Mr. McGlockton never said anything. They had no words exchanged. Mr. Drejka never said anything like stop. Never said anything. Listen carefully to that interview. He indicates that he didn't even see Mr. McGlockton's hands. He never saw his hands. He shot this man, you're going to learn, without having even observed his hands. He never saw his face. He shot this man without even looking at his face. All he saw was his feet. All he saw was his legs. He knew he was an African American based upon the man wearing shorts and based upon the lower body. Listen carefully, because what he says is the defendant was running after he shoved me, and I pulled my gun out and I pointed it at him. He was running towards me. The detective says, well, what if I tell you I watched the video and I didn't see that? So I'm backing up. And his response is, well, I say it's wrong. The video is wrong. No doubt about it. He was running out. I saw him twitch. Watch that video. In that interview, he was asked, aren't you concerned about going up to people, confronting people? You don't.
Haven't seen the Alec Baldwin. It's Alec. It's not Alex Baldwin. It's Alec Baldwin. No, we haven't seen his trial. Maybe we should have a look at that tomorrow. Is it good?
Know him. Don't you think it might, that type of a confrontation might scare somebody? You don't know what, you don't know what that other person, who that other person is, what might happen. You know what he says? He says, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned. Because I'm always carrying it. I said, you're always carrying it. Since I was 20, 21, I'm always carrying it. Listen to that. They asked him in that interview.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you see a A-list actor, you know, on the stand or in court, you know, Johnny Depp, not Amber Heard. I'd never heard of her before that case, and I don't think she's very good. I did force myself to watch the trailer for Aquaman or 2 or whatever, and it was terrible. I mean, all she was doing was running down this like hill over a bunch of obstacles with CGI, but even that, she couldn't act that, right? But then we saw Gwyneth Paltrow, didn't we? And who else? There was another one recently. I forget.
Wouldn't the thing to do call the police? I mean, somebody parks in a handicapped spot. He says, that's my pet peeve. That's my pet peeve. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, he stormed out? That sounds good.
I understand that. That's my pet peeve. I mean, and he's asked, well, don't you think it would be smart to maybe call law enforcement? Oh, by the time you get there, I mean, they're going to be gone. All right. That's kind of what we want. Then leave the spot. No, he wants to confront that person. Listen carefully to his statements. So we're going to play that. It's about an hour long. And then the detectives even have him demonstrate, when he was on the ground, how far Mr. McGlockton was from him when he shot. Watch it. Look at it. He goes, oh, back up, back up. The detective backs up. Further? Yeah, further. The detective hits the wall. He says, I can't go back any further. Well, we're going to show you exactly the size of that room. It was 9 by 11. It was in a 9 by 11 room.
Now Michael Drejka is like 18 across. First 2 letters R-A.
Exactly the size of that room. It was 9 by 11. It was in a 9 by 11 room. We measured it. And you're going to see that that was a 9 by 11 room, and he backed that detective up all the way to the wall. And that's when he said, he then started running towards him. We're going to play that for you. We want you to listen to that. We want you to listen to everything. We're going to show you photographs. Photographs of the defendant's body. Without
Yeah, maybe a crossword would be to, you know, the New York Times cryptic puzzle. No. Yeah, it would be a word search, maybe, or hangman. Or what else is like like just like I said with the cartoon, with the cereal box maze, the Cocoa Puffs cereal box game maze on the back. He loves that. You have to find how to get to the treasure. Maybe it's a pirate, and the Cocoa monkey character is like, I don't know, it's just amazing what they can do.
His shirt, his legs, his arms, his hands, everything. He had one injury, and that was a burn from the asphalt when he was knocked down on his shoulder. No injuries, no marks, back of the head, front, every possible position. And you're going to see the one injury there on his shoulder area. You'll see those photographs. Now, I told you you're going to hear the testimony from the medical examiner. He's going to talk about and show you and demonstrate with charts and all that the entrance wound and the exit wound and where it exactly was on the body. The cause of death was one shot by gunshot. The manner was homicide. And you're going to see that here from Dr. Noel Palmer. Now, a toxicology report was done, always done on autopsies. There was a drug in Markeis' system. It was MDMA, ecstasy. We've got an expert from the University of Florida, head of the toxicology department at the University of Florida, Dr. Bruce Goldberger, who's going to come in this testify about MDMA, what it is, what ecstasy is, what are the effects, and what you're going to learn that it is not a factor in this case. That's what the evidence is going to show. It's not a factor based on the amount in his system and the type of drug that ecstasy is. Dr. Goldberger is going to tell you it's called the love drug. Kind of makes you sensual. It doesn't lead to aggressive behavior. But, all right, you don't need to take Dr. Goldberger's word for that. Watch the video. Watch the video. Markeis walks out calmly, doesn't run, walks out, sees that, pushes him down, sees the gun, recognizes the gun, backs up. You can hear from Dr. Bruce Goldberg.
Yeah, this was the lucky wild card that the defense got thrown, because Markeis, the autopsy showed a trace of ecstasy in his system. And of course, the defense is like, yes, he was hopped up. He was rage, crazy man. A killer man, But that's quite good. The defense, the doctors that come in and say, this is what ecstasy is, both of them essentially say, yeah, it wasn't that.
You're also going to hear from Roy Bedard. Roy Bedard is, I think it's fair to say, a world-renowned expert in the area of use of force. He consults on television shows, police shows. He wrote the book that Florida Department of Law Enforcement created on use of force. He's from Tallahassee. I think he's got his doctorate today in those issues.
Tallahassee. Special mention to Tallahassee. We all live in Tallahassee.
About the use of force and what that means. He's also going to talk to you about the 21-foot rule and how it just doesn't apply in this case. He's going to mention to you about force multiplication, force multiplier, whereas some people call it a force continuum. He's going to tell you about that and how it really doesn't apply in this case. So you're going to hear from Roy Bedard. He's coming in from Tallahassee. We're going to present his testimony to you. He's a use of force expert. Listen carefully to his testimony. At the close of this trial, and you don't get me wrong, a couple things. That incident that occurred on February 14th, that's no reason why you convict the defendant. That just goes to show intent. That just goes to show his opportunity. What we're on trial for today is what he did to Markeis McGlockton. What he did that was improper. The taking of a human being's life without any legal justification. That's why we're in this court. That's what this is all about. And he is presumed innocent. And you all need to honor that. He's presumed innocent. And that's the way our system works. He's presumed innocent until the time you hear the law and you hear the evidence and you see the evidence. And at that time, you go back into that jury room and you begin to deliberate. And it's at that time you can take the presumption of innocence. And we want you all to take your time and look at the evidence and weigh that evidence and listen to the law that Judge Malone gives you. And then return to this courtroom with a verdict that speaks the truth, a verdict that says, we, the members of the jury, each and every one of us, finds the defendant guilty of the crime of manslaughter. So say we all. Each and every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
I thought that was very good. Very good. So what about the defense? See, there's two speaking attorneys for the defense. And it's not the big guy that does the opening. It's the other guy, who I don't think is as good as the big guy. Where is it? Man. Aha.
There was sudden public.
Thank you, Judge. May it please the court, members of the jury.
He's still working on that puzzle. It must be a real, head scratcher. All through opening statement. I think he'll be finished by sentencing.
11 seconds that it took for me to walk from my desk to this podium is the time span that happened from the time that Mr. Markeis McGlockton takes to the next stool.
Does not take 11 seconds to walk from the friggin' table to the podium. You could be out of the building in 11 seconds.
Push up, Mr. Drejka, and the shot. 11 seconds. And so I think it's important that when the state tells you, look at that video. Absolutely. I'm going to play it in a second. We want you to look at the video. We want you to look at it in real time. We don't want you to look at it in slow motion. Because life doesn't happen in slow motion.
Yeah, we don't want you to see the details carefully and be able to count them and look back and rewind. We want you to watch the tape once. Speed it up, okay?
Life didn't happen in slow motion for Mr. Drejka. Now, there are things that you're going to see in that video, but there are things that you can't hear in that video that happen. Things that come into play or came into play when Mr. Drejka took the action he did in those 11 seconds. And even within those 11 seconds, members of the jury, even within those 11 seconds, it took about 5 seconds, roughly, for Mr. McGlockton to push Mr. Drejka, and then another maybe 3 to 4 seconds before the discharge of the gun. 11 seconds. And while Mr. McGlockton, may he rest in peace, had no weapon, he was the weapon. He was the weapon. Judge is going to read you an instruction on homicide, on manslaughter. When you hear the term homicide, it means death as opposed to, say, suicide. It's a technical term, medical term. Just the opposite of homicide. Opposite of suicide. Specifically, he is charged with manslaughter. As Mr. Shaw pointed out, it's not first-degree murder where he premeditated this. So when you hear about this February event, I would submit to you, one, the February event is not a crime. Not a crime. He wasn't even charged with that incident. He wasn't even arrested for that incident. In fact,
What, the one where he was confronting a person for parking in the same space and threatened to shoot them, and then phoned their boss and told him that the guy was lucky that you weren't carrying because you'd have blown his head off. That incident
Mr. Richie Kelly, thinking about calling the police for that incident. I'll get to Mr. Richie Kelly's testimony in a little bit. So there's no premeditation, so not first-degree murder. No second-degree murder, no ill will. There's no evidence of ill will. No evidence of ill will.
Hi, Laurie.
No evidence of hatred. No evidence of spite. Because that would have been the element for second-degree murder. He's not, Mr. Drejka is not on trial for having ill will, hatred, or spite, or premeditation. So that February event I submit to you is not even a crime, and the judge will even tell you he's not on trial for that crime. The state wants you to hear that testimony, hear this idea that this was something planned, something that he planned apparently months ago, meaning Mr. Drejka. Couldn't wait for this to happen. We want you to look at the video, but when we look at it, Mr. Drejka, I want you to look at it in real time. I'm going to play it for a second. Go ahead. Mr. Drejka. 11 seconds. Stop. Now, what I think is important to the jury is that when the judge reads you the definition of manslaughter, the judge is going to read you the definition, and just bear with me, that there are exceptions. It's an unjustified homicide. Unjustified is the key word. And the judge will tell you, though, there are, within the law, and it's the fact finder, we're going to get to what your role as a fact finder means and why it is so important that you listen to these witnesses. Listen to what they say today. Listen to what they also said back then. And as you folks weigh the credibility of these witnesses, if they've changed their story, that's something that you can go back and go take into consideration is, if we're here to find out the truth, why are witnesses changing their story today? I submit to you, we'll get to that in a minute, but I'll submit there'll be plenty of instances where these witnesses are changing their story to fit the crime that didn't happen. Judge will tell you that there are within the definition of this.
This guy's like he's acting out Hamlet or something, right? With these gestures to the ceiling.
Tell you that there are within the definition.
Yeah.
Judge will tell you that there are within the definition of this manslaughter, the unjustified killing of another person. There are exceptions. There's justifiable homicide. That's a defense, so to speak. Justifiable is when a person reacts to defend themselves, short of self-defense, we'll get that in a minute, to prevent something like a felony being committed upon them. The judge will also tell you there's what's known as excusable homicide. Excusable is when someone reacts heat of passion, sudden provocation. The judge will read you that law. And that's why it's important when you read or you listen to the testimony of these witnesses. You'll see that there was sudden provocation on the part of Mr. The judge will also tell you that self-defense is a law that's been in place forever. And you folks need to take that into consideration when you listen to the facts and when you look at it. More importantly, the judge will tell you that you have to look at what were the circumstances that surrounded Mr. Drejka at the time this happened. In 11 seconds, this happened. In 11 seconds, you'll hear testimony. This is Mrs. Brittany Jacobs right here, coming out of her vehicle. This is Mr. Castelli, and that's Mr. McGlockton. It's important, Mr. Drejka, when you look at this, remember, it took about 6 seconds from the time that Mr. McGlockton exited the store and pushed Mr. Drejka. 6 seconds after, and play it. And stop. Now, what you're going to hear is this, that prior to Mr. McGlockton coming out, Mr. Castelli, the gentleman that you see coming out of the store with the blue shirt and the red sneakers, you're going to hear that he did hear the altercation. It was a verbal altercation. But what's important is you're not going to hear Mr. Castelli say that Mr. Drejka was threatening anybody. No matter what Mr. Shaw or the state says, there was no threats. Mr. Drejka had a concealed weapon. He was allowed to have a concealed weapon. Not once did he ever take that weapon out or threaten anybody. Not once. Never threatened. Brittany Jacobs was in the car. Never said.
Never threatened or warned, just shot.
Said anything to cause any fear in her mind. Nothing. In fact, you will hear that at some point, Ms. Jacobs said to law enforcement when all this was said and done that she couldn't wait to get out of that car. She was going to lay her hands on Mr. Drejka too. She couldn't wait to get out of the car. And if you look, who opens the door the minute she sees Mr. McGlockton come out? It's Brady Jacobs. Prior to that, Mr. Castelli will tell you at some point in the past, Mr. Castelli told during an interview, if you will, deposition, that he specifically heard Ms. Jacobs say, "My man is going to F you up." Wait, is my
Hi, Kim. How you doing?
man is about to F you up. So when you hear Mr. Shaw say there was a verbal altercation, absolutely there was a verbal altercation. But not once did Mr. Drejka threaten him or her, the kids. There were kids in the car. We want you to rely not on emotion, but on facts. The facts, the truth. Not once did he threaten anybody, not one, Mr. Castelli will tell you, not one word of a threat on the part of Mr. Drejka. He'll tell you, folks, that it was Brady Jacobs who was threatening Mr. Drejka. Wait, my man is going to F you up. Just wait. And no sooner than he comes out of the store, no sooner does he come out of the store, she's in the car, she sees her man, and what does she do? She comes out, stop. And so when the judge tells you, you have to put yourself, or not yourself, but when you have to consider all the facts and circumstances that Mr. Drejka was facing at that time, you have to consider that in those 11 seconds, and actually shorter than that, because the push is about to happen. He doesn't see Mr. McGlockton. He doesn't see him at all. He's blindsided. And for Mr. Shaw to say that this was just a push, this was not a push. This was a violent shove. So much so that when he hit the pavement, you'll see, look at this, you'll see at some point. Look at Mr. Drejka's neck.
Yeah.
You'll
see where he hit the pavement. You'll see the tiny, insignificant injury to his elbow. You know,
force of the blow, and he landed. Jump ahead a little bit. When you hear that there was a little injury, the force was so.
They're definitely starting from behind with this. By the end of the opening statements, you know, the state was very strong, very strong. This is not that great at all. Well, though he is, you know, he's okay. It's just no, it's, you know, he's doing that thing where he says, "But I'll submit it to you, but I'll submit it to you," and, you know, just keeps saying that.
Strong that it tore a hole in his shirt. And during his interview, law enforcement, during his voluntary interview, law enforcement, he didn't have to give. He had to make a makeshift sling because he had hurt his arm. So at this point, this is a perfect stop right here. So at this point, when the judge tells you, you have to look at the facts and the circumstances that surrounded Mr. Drejka at the time that he reacted. At this point, 1, 2, 3 people are hovering over Mr. Drejka. 3 people. You have the threat that my man is going to F you up.
Yeah, Kim, I think we might check out Alec Baldwin tomorrow night. I might have a look around what's been going on with it. You know, people are talking about it.
You have
no one's talking about Michael Drejka anymore. You know, that's so last decade.
In the car, and then you have this sudden shove, this sudden push that caused him to hit that concrete hard. And moving in the background is Mr. Castelli. And in that instant, in the bout, remember, from the time of the push to the time that the gun was withdrawn and discharged, it's about 3 to 4 seconds. 3 to 4 seconds before the discharge took place. And within those 3 to 4 seconds, Mr. Drejka, in his mind, what is about to happen to me? Did I see Ms. Jacobs come out? I've been blindsided and shoved. I see a gentleman looming in the background, and I see Mr. McGlockton lifting up his pants. I submit to you, and that's how they proceed. When you hear all this, absolutely, take all this into consideration. But let's get to the truth. Let's get to the truth of what happened. 11 seconds, Mr. That's all it took. And unfortunately, the action Mr. McGlockton took resulted in this. I'm not blaming here. That's not blame. I'm here to explain. There's justifiable homicide, there's excusable homicide, and then there's self-defense. Those are the facts that we want you to do. Here's Markeis. Shooting happens. Mr. Castelli walks away. Mr. McGlockton goes in.
Well, thanks so much for the super sticker, Kim, and for your kind comments. Much appreciated. Yeah, we're definitely going to do Alec Baldwin tomorrow. I think that's the call. That's that feels right, you know. So let's do that. Probably a little earlier, but you know, maybe 6 Eastern.
The store. Mr. Drejka sits there. He pauses. He goes on for a few more seconds after that. He pauses, puts his gun down. What does he do? He waits. He doesn't run. He doesn't flee. He waits. What does he wait for? Waits for the police. He waited for the police, and he told them what happened. Now, at some point, this is the danger when you talk to the police, that anything you say can and will be used against you, no matter what you say. So in this instance, because he said, go back, go back, go back, it's not like Mr. Drejka took a measuring tape and measured it before he interviewed the police. At the time he was interviewed with the police, he had a makeshift arm sling. He's giving law enforcement his best recollection of what happened. So when the police are coming here and tell you, he said, go back, to the point where law enforcement couldn't go back anymore, and it was happened to be 9, 10 feet, does that make it so? Or is that just Mr. Drejka's best interpretation of what he would call happened? When Mr. Drejka tells you that in the 2 seconds, 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's not Michael Drejka's fault that the room where they were interrogating him was too small to do a demonstration to scale. You know what they should have done? They should have got a really small detective. Because if a small detective was a closer distance, if we scaled that up to the parking lot of the Circle K and replaced the small detective with Markeis, it would be to scale, right? If you drew a diagram of that, it would make sense.
Seconds it took for him to shoot the gun. That in his perception, he saw Mr. McGlockton come after him. Was he lying? You will hear testimony that Mr. Drejka went into the store and asked, are there cameras? Are there cameras? Are there cameras? This is immediately after the shootings. He knew the owners as well. Are there cameras? Are there cameras? Are there cameras? Yeah, there's cameras. He knew there was cameras inside that store. So he wasn't lying. He was remembering the best that he could for the impact that he sustained. It's important to point out that the state made a big point that he himself.
Hi, Udo. How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Remember, guys, to leave a like on the video, share, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel.
Didn't park in the spot. Certainly, though.
We've got Alec Baldwin booked in for tomorrow night, guys. Oh, thank you so much, Hildy, for the Norwegian super sticker. That is so appreciated.
You'll see that this photograph was taken almost immediately after the incident, and Mr. Jacob's car is no longer there. Somebody moved it. Somebody moved it just before the police got there. But even more importantly, members of the jury, when we look at the setting, the circumstances, you're going to hear from the medical examiner that Mr. McGlockton was slightly taller, a couple inches, maybe a few inches taller, weight heavier. And these are things, again, that the court will take into consideration, the facts, the circumstances, the size, the appearance of the aggression that he was faced with that caused him to react the way he did. But the other advantage that Mr. McGlockton had at that moment was that, in addition to the height, that he was a height difference. Mr. Drejka was sitting on lower ground, and Mr. McGlockton had higher ground. And these were all the factors that came into play at the time the incident happened. I mentioned the witness credibility. It's important. It is. The judge will tell you that the presumption of innocence does stay. It's up to the state to disprove. It's up to the state to prove that it wasn't justifiable through the same witnesses. It's up to the state to prove to you that it wasn't excusable.
Hi, Kim. That is Norwegian krona. So it's actually not $100. You see, it's about €8, I think, is the conversion, which is still a very generous donation. But yeah, we'll keep stacking for that microphone. But I think the audio is going quite well. But a camera, we should get a camera for sure. And other stuff for the studio, to make these streams better, guys. If anyone wants to support the channel, there's a link in the description to buymeacoffee.com where you can buy us a coffee.com. And or super sticker, super chat, super thanks, super like, super YouTube, super subscribe.
And it's up to the state to prove that it wasn't self-defense. We don't have any burden here, and I have to remind you of that. We have no burden, no responsibility. But in order for the state to do that, you have this awesome power to believe or disbelieve these witnesses. That's why when Mr. Shaw says, listen carefully to his interview, absolutely listen carefully to his interview. The one that he didn't have to give, the one he gave, what they call after his wife. Listen to what Ms. Jacobs has to say today. To compare it to what she told law enforcement that day. That she got out of that car for a reason, not because she was in fear, because she couldn't wait to get her hands on him as well. And that's the sentiment that was conveyed to Mr. Drejka. It created this apprehension of fear, a reasonable apprehension of fear. Coupled with a threat, wait till my man comes out. Coupled by the sudden violent push. And then this gentleman, Mr. Castelli, looming in the background. 4 seconds, member.
Thanks, Kim.
The jury, 4 seconds. That's why there's no premeditation. That's why there's no ill will, hatred, and spite. Because it was 4 seconds. 4 seconds, circumstances by which Mr. Drejka felt that something was going to happen. And what's important, members of the jury, is at some point the judge will tell you that the danger need not have been actual. The danger need not even have been actual in his state of mind. It's the appearance of danger. If you take notes, take this note. You don't have to, but just the danger need not even be actual. It's the appearance of danger that caused him to act justifiably, excusably, or in self-defense. That's what's at issue here. So look at the video, listen to the testimony, and put it all together. Let's talk about Richard Kelly now that I mentioned. And as I mentioned, members of the jury, as far as the slow motion, members of the jury, the state's going to play whatever version they want. Life didn't happen in slow motion. I want you to look at it in real time. Count the number of seconds. Play it in slow motion if you want. That's not how it happened to Mr. Drejka. Going back a little bit, put the circumstances kind of into context. It may have been Mr. Drejka's pet peeve that somebody was parking in a handicapped spot. That's not a crime. Even from members of the jury yesterday, this week, that said the same thing. It's a personal issue to Mr. Drejka to have someone park in a handicapped spot. That's not a crime. In fact, Mr. Shaw told you perhaps it was wrong for them to park in that spot. And that's all Mr. Drejka did. So in your testimony about him looking around behind the car, you'll see what he's doing. He's looking for a handicapped tag. That's all he's doing. So if there's any allegation that, well, Mr. Drejka felt threatened, you can hear testimony, he didn't even know we were there inside the car. One, he had glasses on, and two, the windows were tinted. He had no idea who was in the car. He's looking for a tag in the rear, goes up front, looks for a tag up front, doesn't find anything. At some point, you'll see that the window rolls down, and it's Ms. Jacobs who initiates the contact, initiates the aggression. He went downhill from there. That is the fact. Those are the facts. That's the truth by which you need to go back and determine whether or not a crime has been committed. You can see my style is a little bit more deliberate. I'm not going to rely on emotion. Because this is important. We're not driven by emotion, politics. We're driven by the facts. So bear with me if I take the time to look at my notes, but this is important. And as fact finders, the judge would expect the same of you. No emotion, just the facts. You will hear that there were other people there.
again, the state has the sole burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. There were other people there, and they were actually absolutely watching and observing what had happened. And quite frankly, you'll see that Mr. Costelli was there. He already went into the store. And we'll find out maybe what was his rationale for walking, what was his deal? Why was he going out and approaching this altercation, if you will? There was a young lady by the name of Brittany Hicks. She was there. In fact, I think you may see her in the video. She may have been one of the young ladies that looked back, saw that there was an argument going on, but went on her way. Not enough. She didn't see anything that caused her enough to really say something bad's going to happen. It really was just a verbal dispute. And the person who initiated the violent contact, the person, you can see, didn't have a knife, didn't have a gun. The person who had the force, the weight, he didn't walk over to Mr. Drejka. He made a beeline to Mr. Drejka. He made a beeline towards him. Being forcibly emotional. He initiated the violence. Talk about Richard Kelly. This incident happened in February of the year before. What's interesting again is the state's going to tell you, well, he's not charged with that. It's not a crime, and it's not. The judge's going to tell you he's not charged with that. But you can kind of take that into consideration to see whether there's a motive, plan, something that's going on and working in the mind of Mr. Drejka. Well, members of the jury, again, it's not a crime as to what happened back in February. It wasn't a crime. The police were never called. Mr. Drejka was never charged. And so if the state's not going to argue this is premeditation, which is not, then what's the point of this?
Hi, Bob. How you doing? Good to see you.
You have to rely on the evidence and the facts that I submit you happened that day. Now, Mr. Kelly is going to tell you that this altercation happened, and that what did he see Mr. Drejka do? Take pictures. Take pictures of this company vehicle parked in a handicapped spot. And what did Mr. Drejka do? He didn't pull out a gun. There's no violence.
He didn't have a gun on him. He told the guy's boss that he was lucky that he wasn't carrying that day. Because if he was going to blow his head off for parking in the handicapped spot, which this case is about. This happened 5 weeks earlier. What timing?
They're claiming that the statement was made, I could have blown his head off. I'm sure. Again, that's not charged with a crime. Wasn't a crime then. No police were called, despite the fact that they wanted to believe that he.
Yeah, all of this stuff that he's gotten away with doesn't count because the cops didn't bother to charge him. I think he could have been charged with, I don't know, what do you call it? Stirring up trouble.
Threatened to shoot him. No police were called. What did Mr. Drejka do? He called management. He called the company to say, hey, you can park in the handicapped spot. My pet peeve, folks, my pet peeve. And that's all he did was he called the company. So take a look at Mr. Kelly's testimony because you're going to hear it.
I think this case should be called the pet peeve case, right? I've never liked that expression, my pet peeve, teachers used to say that at school. And I was like, what is this language that you're using? Speak English, pet peeve. I accept people say it, but I don't. But for some reason, this case just insists that it's brought to the surface every opportunity,
That
the pet peeve case.
coincidentally, he happened to drive by, he saw the car, and he's going to tell you, from what I gather, opening statements, that he didn't know who was shot, who was killed, didn't know anything about that. Just happened to recognize the car, happened to be at the right time, right place, right time. Spoke to law enforcement, Detective DeLeon, and said, hey, I recognize that car, and this is what happened 5 months ago. And then that led to his boss, John Tyler.
Oh, it was months? Well, even so, that's still bad timing.
Becoming witness. So then you're going to hear that Mr. Kelly himself participated in rallies against Mr. Drejka, joined his community to go out there and fight to see that he's convicted. And the judge is going to tell you, you have that right to look at what's the incentive for witnesses to come in here and say what they're going to say. And so this Mr. Kelly, who was out there fighting for the conviction of Mr. Drejka, he's out there rallying the people. He's going to tell you about an incident that happened where he didn't call the police.
Oh, he's rallying because the sheriff of the county was going to let him off. And they were supporting the idea that he be held to justice. You know, oh, he was out there with a sign saying racist killer, you know, telling everyone. Poisoning the well, he was poisoning the well.
Important. If we could look at the video one more time, Mr. Flores. By the way, while he's preparing that, unfortunately, that day you can hear there's testimony that Mr. McGlockton did have what's commonly.
Thank you so much, Hildy. You are so appreciated. We are gracious, and we thank you.
Known as ecstasy or other things. And you're going to hear from their witness. You're going to hear from their expert witness that what he, in his expert opinion, believes ecstasy, the effect that could have on a person. But you're also going to hear from their own expert that ecstasy can cause impulsivity. Their own expert's going to tell you that he didn't know Mr. McGlockton, doesn't know how long Mr. McGlockton may have been using LSD, doesn't know anything about that, doesn't know how much he took that day. LSD. But he'll tell you, their own witness, and you may even hear from a witness of ours.
Your Honor, I'd object. There's no testimony or evidence about LSD in this case.
Yeah, I think you may have said that by accident, so I'll sustain the objection.
All right. I'll just wait. I apologize. Not LSD, LSD. Different drug completely. I'm a little older, I apologize. Ecstasy for sure, okay. Point is, you can hear their own experts going to say that ecstasy can lead to the impulsivity that's hits you. You witness the cause of violently push. And that's evidence. You're allowed to take that back to root and consider that when we deliberate. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, this is their big thing, Bob. This theory that he was on ecstasy and he was so impulsive. You know, what is he going to be impulsive about? The control of his jaw. You know, he's going to be grinding his jaw, stretching his back, and maybe going for a run, just cause. You know, he's not going to lash out.
Okay, so now there's testimony that within the time that Mr. Drejka removed the gun, and it took about 4 seconds at best, at most, that he was directing Mr. McGlockton, directing him, and then he discharged. But remember though, we're talking 4 seconds, we're talking about, and again, if you look at the video, we're talking about the shock, the whiplash, if you will, before it ended. The shock, and at some point you can hear from Valerie McLean. We can tell you that usually someone.
Yeah, the whiplash. Our expert is going to come in and he's going to say that the whiplash, the bounce back, the recoil, just, you know, his gun recoiled and it was out and he was directing him and then it went off.
Was confronted with that type of violence.
It went off because the gun had recoiled into the perfect kill shot for Markeis McGlockton.
Usually your reaction.
But it was because of the whiplash. Our expert is going to tell you this.
Is one of shock.
Watch the video. Watch it once. Watch it once, speed it up, and then don't watch it again.
Especially when you don't expect it coming. A blow like that, there's one of shock, disorientation, confusion. That's what's important that they won't discuss, the state won't discuss. There was confusion on the part of Mr. Drejka. He had no idea what had just happened to him. Look, the video, he had no clue.
Yeah, Neverly, it is a good, well-fitted suit, isn't it? But I get worried when an attorney is, you know, particularly well-groomed. You know, everyone's crazy about a sharp-dressed man, okay, but if you're so obsessive about it, I think you're just a lawyer to be posing. You know, a scruffy lawyer is sometimes the best because they're in the law books. Where are they? In the law library. They're not out buying, you know, fine Italian silk tailored suits. He was probably standing up for 4 hours being measured for that, not in the law library.
Clue that he was gonna get slammed the way he did and then collide with the floor. We've heard it before, in the jury selection, it causes confusion. You don't realize what's happened to you. So when there's testimony that he took the gun and started directing people, I submit you, common sense will tell you, the evidence will show, it's a little bit of everything, a little bit of confusion, shock, because again, when you see that the shooting's done, at the end of that video, he sits there. Mr. Drejka just sits there, the same position you see when discharged, and just sits there. I submit to you in that same state of shock. So this idea of going back to the he was directing him, which one? You'll see that the quality of the video is not gonna stop. Can you rewind it? All right, I want you to look at, you're gonna see Mr. McGlockton.
Oh, absolutely right. I actually, when I went back to watch this case after the Magbanoa Cifredo Garcia attorney, Mr. Hand Grenade, Sand Grenade, whatever, I had to go and look it up if it was him. You know, I was like, is that him? But no, it's a different lawyer. But I thought for a moment it was the same guy. Yeah, they do look similar. And Sangane was all flash, nice suits, perfect haircut, you know, $250 haircut.
To the store, if you can, look over his right shoulder and you'll see there's some static, because everyone will agree that this is not the best high quality video. All right, push play. Look over his right shoulder. You can see some static. Wait again. Some static. You can see the hat. And so at some point you'll see.
He's just flip flops. He's got these baggy shorts. Oh, big open shirt, huge shirt. Do you remember how big his shirt was in the interrogation room, guys? It's like a tent. Yeah, he's just a scruffy guy, you know. And I'm wearing flip flops right now. Don't get me wrong. I've got shorts on, right? It's just it's the summer, right? But I think it's his posture as well, you know. He's just a bitter, twisted man, isn't he? That's what it is. Monster drink man. Ah, just can you imagine being anywhere near him just in life? He'd be complaining about something. He'd be going on about how the tree cutting business chews you up and spits you out, you know.
But if you see it was right shoulder, at some point when you see the gun where they're claiming that he's directing someone, you can't rely on what you see in the video, because that video, unfortunately, is not the best quality video. You'll see in other instances the grill of the vehicle, the static. You can look at it in your own time. The static, it makes things look like they're moving when they're not.
Yeah, Kim, we're waiting. We're ready to cover Boone. We're probably going to do a few more videos of her preliminary hearings. And there's still more to go with the witnesses from when it originally happened. I don't think we've covered the property manager or the next door neighbor or the family members of George. Are there any more? We covered Brian Boone, but I fell asleep, you know. Anyway, yeah, there's more to come. And then in October, I think it's October 7th is the start of the trial. She's representing herself. I did not think that was going to happen. I did not think that was going to happen, you know. Surely that gives her some grounds for appeal. But I think they just want to get something done now, right? Let her appeal. They think, you know, it's not going to have another trial if you want. You're staying in jail. Just her attitude about the whole thing. Still, incredible. Incredible. So, yeah, look forward to seeing her own opening statement about what the case is about and how it's going to be proven. And wow, I mean, that is going to be, you know, everyone needs to book that week off. I think we're going to be doing wall-to-wall Metrix coverage of the Sarah Boone trial. Which would probably be a good point for everybody to subscribe to the channel. Like, share, leave a comment, super like, super chat, super thanks, super sticker, buymeacoffee.com, link in the description. But most importantly, subscribe to the channel, guys. You know, we reached 1,000 subscribers yesterday. And it's amazing. I just never thought so many people would come to listen to me eat. I'm trying to, there's usually a packet of nuts, you see. Sometimes, yeah, I know, maybe I should stop doing that. Yeah. I don't think people like that.
So when the state says that they're watching this, I submit to you, it's a combination of the shock, the nervousness, and this poor quality video. No one's gonna ever tell you that on that day, the day of the shooting, that they saw him directing. No one said that. No one's gonna say that they saw that happen. There was no time for Mr. Drejka to contemplate that, to say, move. In fact, nothing was even said. And again, remember this whole idea that, well, he saw the legs up. Patel was an African-American person. We get it. It's not about race, but we get it. You gotta make it a point. You recognize an African-American male. It's not what happened. It's not what was going on. But nonetheless, for them to sit there and say that, oh, you see, and yet he claims he merged on, remember, it's that quick. That quick. There's no time for him to contemplate to direct anyone. Look at the video, you'll see it's a combination of poor quality video and nervousness. And the time he's confronted with what you see there, the three people moving in the back. All right, you can stop it. I'm going to sum up.
Yeah, unsalted, unflavored, Kim. None of that fucking throw a load of salt and chili powder and whatever, chemical chili powder, not even good stuff, right? Yeah, all those crazy nuts. It's just too much. It's too much sodium. Nuts are really good for you, but if you cover them in all that shit, you could only have them maybe once a month, really, to stay healthy, So yeah, unsalted, unflavored. And I've moved on to the mixed nuts. There's cashew, walnut, almond, and Brazil. Pretty good bag.
Coming up this way, Member Drew. Actually, if I have a moment, Judge, I'm sorry.
You may.
Yeah, roasted nuts are good. Sure, Kim. And, if you can do it from home, that's awesome. Yeah, it is nice to do that.
All right, so, and I promise I'm going to wrap up, but one of the things that, again, I want you to listen carefully to the witnesses, just as a simple reminder is, when you go back there as a fact finder, as a truth finder, the judge is going to tell you that you have to have an abiding conviction of guilt. The judge is going to tell you that it's an abiding conviction of guilt. That's how strong the state's burden is. That's how strong it has to be. And that's why I implore you absolutely listen to the testimony, but more importantly, what are people saying now as opposed to what they said back then? Again, you will hear that at some point, it was Brittany Hicks that at some point may or may not testify, and if she does, she'll tell you that she herself thought that Mr. McGlockton was coming in for another blow, another attack. And again, if you look at that video, at one point where Mr. McGlockton lifts up his hands and he has his hands up, that is what Mr. Drejka saw. We can't ignore that. The state may want you to, but you can't. Because that's exactly what went on in Mr. Drejka's mind. So Brittany Hicks is going to say, I submit to you, at least she's
Bob, my cousin Vinny would win any case there was, and you know it. He's the perfect lawyer. And I think My Cousin Vinny is a brilliant courtroom movie. It's said to be the most actually representative of court procedure accurately. It's shown in law schools to say, okay, it works like this, and then you have voir dire and blah, 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 Yeah, it's what a movie. What a movie.
She said back then that she herself thought that Mr. McGlockton was going in for another attack. All right. Folks, I know you've been very attentive, and I'm just going to wrap up with the following closing remarks. I'm sorry. This is my opening statement. This is not evidence.
I want you to remember the rules, so to speak, is that you're the fact finder. Justice is blind, it's not driven by emotion. Politics, race, prejudice, bias, judgment tell you that doesn't mean the facts. The facts that they represented that day. The facts that they played in the mind of Mr. Drejka that day. I think it is important that when you hear the testimony of Mr. Kelly, Richie Kelly, keep in mind, and Mr. Tyler, his boss, keep in mind the context of what happened then back in February compared to what happened in July. There was no fight, no physical altercation. Allegedly, words were exchanged where he allegedly, my client allegedly threatened to shoot somebody, although no gun. Listen carefully to the testimony. At some point, Mr. Drejka went to his car, and you heard he took pictures. There's no gun removed that day in February, no gun. There's a difference, there's a complete variance, difference of the two incidences that I submit to you really should have no bearing. That's just my argument to you folks. What happened here was unfortunate.
So what's your point? That he only shoots someone when he has his gun? You know, you say, yeah, he didn't shoot him back in February because he didn't have a gun, ladies and gentlemen.
What happened here was a gentleman who weighed more, was taller, had the higher ground from the ramp, initiated the contact, and it caused, again, the sense of shock in the mind of Mr. Drejka. I submit to the evidence will show that he reacted based on what he observed that day. I submit to you the evidence will show that the use of deadly force was justifiable, and you're going to hear that term again, excusable, and so on. Justifiable because, again, Mr. Drejka reasonably believed that force was necessary. And those facts and those circumstances justifiable. And I also submit to you that his behavior was excusable. The sudden provocation, if you hear the word, sudden provocation, you hear the judge tell you, the sudden provocation that occurred would also rise a level of excusable homicide. And those are defenses. And the state's burden to rebut those and show that it wasn't justifiable to use, or the last one, self-defense. Remember, you have to consider everything, the facts, circumstances by which he was surrounded, and I promise I'm going to end with this. When you couple everything you've heard me say, in altercation, encounter, the verbal altercation, the fact that not once did Mr. Drejka, when he initiated contact, the fact that he didn't even know that that car was on him, the fact that he never moved a gun, the fact that it was Brittany who initiated the threats and the warning, my man's going to come in you well.
Your Honor, at this point, the state would object. We're getting into argument now, repeating the same things over during
So
opening
I'll come to you.
arguments.
Thank you, Judge. That the only true and just verdict is that of not guilty. And that's what we're asking for. Thank you. On behalf of Mr. Drejka and my fellow co-counsel, I thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Cameron.
Judge.
All right, members of the jury, we've been going for quite a while, so let's go ahead and give you a 10-minute comfort break, and then we'll come back and we'll start with the testimony.
He's going to have to come back to his puzzle. Yeah, hide the puzzle.
Yeah. Say
All right, so we'll take a 10-minute break.
He still looks like he's got not really any much idea about what's going on, doesn't he? You know, what does he think? That this is just a process? He just doesn't seem that bright, does he? Yeah. So what did he get? He got 20 years, didn't he? Let's have a look at the Circle A. Circle A. Clearwater. Oh, yeah. Share the map. Share the map. Not our map. We're going to have a look at the circle A. How do we do that? Go to this point. Whoosh. And there it is, guys. We were looking at this earlier. Look, there's actually someone parked in the space. That's the spot, right? That's the spot where Brittany Jacobs was parked. Michael Drejka came in here and parked there. Head on, aggressive. Got out, stomped round. You know, giving it attitude and heavy looks. Looking for trouble. How do we do 3D? Wow, look at it. It's pretty cool that you can do this with how do we Anyway, what are we doing? We're closing it off, are we, guys? Yeah, tomorrow night we're looking at Alec Baldwin and what's been going on with that trial. That's the right move, I think. There's been some calls for that in the chat tonight, and it's current. So let's put up some Baldwin, baby. Yeah. Hello to everyone in the chat. Hi, Riding. So good to see you. Remember, guys, to like the video, share, leave a comment. Okay, Hildy. Yeah. You're not so much of a fan of Joe Pesci. Yeah, I love it. It's great. And the judge is fantastic. Herman Munster. Okay, Kim, enjoy chess tomorrow with your patients. Yeah, chess is a good game, and you should also try backgammon or Yahtzee. Yeah. Where are you, Rudy? Orlando, I think, right? Yeah. That's okay. We're with you, man. We're with you. What else can we do? Is there anything left on here? Well, we don't want to go to the sentencing. Yeah, there's a few testimonies that are good, but we'll check those out another time. We'll dip in and out of this one, guys. This is just for quiet nights at True Crime Metrix with our little tiny group here. Yeah. Maybe we'll get more hits tomorrow, huh? With the Baldwin. Yeah. Better start working on that thumbnail. Okay, we'll leave it there, guys. Take it easy. Thank you for all the super chat, super thanks, super sticker, super like, super YouTube, super subscribe from everyone in the chat. Have a good day. Have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.